All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We're getting started on exercise 13. Exercise 13 is very similar to exercise 12, just that we're using some different media and you're holding something in your hand this time. All right. So in exercise 12, you had your hand underneath the plastic drawing plane. In this situation for 13, you need to find something that you can hold in your hand and still balance that plastic drawing plane on top. And then you're going to go through the same procedure. You're just going to close one eye, be sure that you keep your head still, and trace what you see through the plastic drawing plane. And I will do that. I will remind you to go nice and slow, take your time, hold things still, and if you make any mistakes, that you should go back and correct those mistakes because we're just tracing, just like we've done before. You should be getting pretty good at this, but if you're still having trouble, then practice it a couple of times. You don't need to get it done on the first go. The main thing is keeping things still, keeping that one eye closed so that you flatten everything out. And if things get kind of out of whack, you just move your head back to the correct position, line everything up properly again, and then get back to tracing what you see. As I mentioned before, don't push so hard. All right, when you push really hard, it moves the plastic drawing plane around. It makes it more difficult for you to be able to erase things if something goes wrong. Take your time, slow down. It's going to look great. Don't forget to include your wrist this time, just like you did before. All those little lines on your hand, you want to be sure to get all of those. And then you should have an image, right? Look, I missed a line. So I want to go back, right? Try to get things back into position, especially for what I was drawing. Get that line back in. I missed some contour lines going over the bell as well. All right. Bam, this is a great place to start. Now it's time for me to add this to my piece of paper. I've got my setup on my piece of paper the same way that I did before. All right. Notice how I framed it. It's wider at the bottom. It's not as wide at the top. On the front side, I've drawn the crosshairs again. All right, so now I'm just going to transfer what it is I've traced onto my piece of paper. I've got the crosshairs ready to go. So using my pencil, I'm going to lightly sketch in these details. I'm looking for the smaller shapes that are closest to where the crosshairs meet, just like last time. All right, so this is a very small shape. I can start with that one. And I'm just going to work my way out, making the shapes further away from the crosshairs as I go. If I make any kind of mistakes, I can go back and I can erase. No big whoop. If something doesn't fit into my drawing, then I can just leave it out. Don't try to make stuff fit. Really try to see those shapes for the shapes that they are. Pay attention to their size. Each one is its own interesting, unique shape, and you want to pay attention to all of its details. Just like puzzle pieces, they all fit in place. So you really want to take time to be sure that you're making it just the right shape, because if you don't, it affects all the other puzzle pieces and they don't fit the way you want. But remember, you can always go back and fix stuff later on. You just erase it, try it again. It can be easy to throw yourself off and start away from the crosshairs, but really each time you start in a new section, go back to where the crosshairs meet and start your drawing from there. If you don't, all your proportions can easily get thrown off and everything will look really out of whack and you won't know why. You really need to start with where the crosshairs meet. Just like, I always say it's like, aiming a gun, right? You got those crosshairs, and if you line them up correctly, then you're going to shoot it in the right direction. And if you don't, you're going to miss your target. All right, so at this point, I've got my drawing in place. Now it's time to use my new material. All right, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to erase out my setup lines, which are those crosshairs. And then after that, I'm going to use my crayon to add finishing lines and shading in this situation. For exercise 13, we're just dealing with lights and darks. We're just going to do some shading. We'll get to color in the next exercise. Just starting off using some sketching lines to sketch all the stuff that I've done in pencil, in crayon, and then I'm going to come back and start adding some details. Really pay attention to what you drew before. If there's anything you missed, it's your chance to get some of that stuff in, but you'll have a chance to get more details in just a second as well, because you're going to be looking at your model, which is your hand and whatever it is you're holding just a sec. All of this stuff down here, it looks really weird right now until we add the shading. This is the whole point of foreshortening. All right, the way that you see things does not line up with how you know things to be. And this is something that you're trying to really figure out now that you're learning how to draw. So now I take it, I put it back into place, and I'm going to add some shading. That's my next step. Try to get it sort of right, but don't kill yourself trying to get it in exactly the same pose because it could be really difficult. All right, especially because you're not balancing something on top of it anymore. All right, just do your best. At this point, you're going to start looking for the things that you see, and you're going to start adding some finishing lines. So you're going to darken things up, and you're going to add some shading. And if it's difficult to add some shading, just do your best. We'll get more to shading later on, but this is a great way just to observe what you see and to try to put in some of the different lights and darks that you see. All right? It's easiest to start with things that are darkest. All right, so look for places where you see real dark shadows and start with those dark shadows first. And then you'll move on to other places in your drawing after you've gotten those shadows. Any details that you missed when you were tracing, now you can get those details in. And the reason I had you guys use crayon for this one is that crayon is fantastic at getting different values. Lights and darks work awesome on crayon. I can go from really bright spots to really light spots. In your hand, and whatever it is you're drawing in your hand, have all kinds of lights and darks, all right? And, just like how all those shapes are their own thing, all of those lights and darks are their own shapes. So just try to get them in as best you can. Once you're done adding in the lights and darks on your hand and on the object that's in your hand, right? Once you feel like you've added some good shading to that, what you also want to do is you want to go all the way around what you've made, and you're going to add in a little bit of value around what you've drawn. All right, we got that drawing frame there. We want to be sure to use that drawing frame. So you're just going to go around your hand to all the rest of that space and try to fill it up with a little bit of value as well. All right. Try to pay attention to how you're adding that value. Spend some time trying to smooth things out. If you're drawing, the place where I'm drawing right now doesn't really have a lot of stuff that I can add to it. All right. But if you've got a more interesting spot that your hand is on top of, don't forget to try to add some of those details because it'll look good. But we're going to go all the way around the outside edge and define our drawing frame with the crayon. Notice how lightly I'm pushing, all right? A lot of people, when they're working with crayon, they want to push real hard, all right? Really, the hard parts that you're going to push have to do with your hand and what you're holding in your hand and all those lights and darks that you see, right? But then the rest of it, try to put it in lighter, because the real focus of your drawing is your hand and how you observed your hand and whatever it is you're holding in your hand. That's the subject of your drawing. All of this other space around your hand, around the subject, you don't want it to take the focus away from your subject. This stuff is really the finishing touches. This is step 3 of how to draw anything ever. All right. Now look at that's all dark. So we're going to go back in and add more darks to everything else. My hand is not nearly as dark as this wood on the bell that I'm drawing. That's what I'm drawing, by the way, is a bell. So I want to go back in and be sure that I'm drawing that, the lights and darks on the bell, the way that I see them. Maybe you didn't choose something as complicated to draw as Mr. Powell, but that's cool. Whatever it is you're drawing, try to see the lights and darks on it and the lights and darks in your hand and do your best. And if yours doesn't come out like this, that's fine, all right? But try to get down what it is you see. That's what we're aiming for, is drawing what we see. All right, so I'm all done. I added all that shading. Notice what a clean drawing frame I've got at this point. Notice how my drawing medium has made such a difference, right? Graphite is so smooth. The texture of crayon is totally different from graphite, right? It's just a totally different thing. Down below, I need to give myself the same non-art information that I've always done, all right? Pay attention to where your drawing frame is, all right? And then underneath my drawing frame, I'll give a title over here on the left. And then over here on the right, I'll put my name first and last and the date. Bam.